Welcome back to Canadian Justice, where we're discussing a group of human rights complaints made against the public sector union CUPE for a pattern of anti-Semitism and discrimination against Jewish union members. And we're joined by the lawyer representing these union members, Kathryn Marshall. Now, Kathryn, you know, it seems just watching the news like there is a pattern of anti-Semitism in large institutions, unions,
Mhm.
universities, large organizations, and it's not just in Canada. I think most of us by now are familiar with the ouster of the presidents of Harvard and Penn, at least in part because of their congressional testimony about institutional anti-Semitism, where they both, along with the president of MIT, refused to say that calling for the genocide of Jews would violate the school's policies on bullying and harassment. Now, what is going on in these institutions that has caused this tolerance for hatred and acceptance of hatred against one particular group, a group that is one of the historically most discriminated against minorities of all time?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question. I don't have concrete answers, but I've got theories. My belief is that anti-Semitism is far closer to the surface than we realize in Canada, and October 7th has shown that when we look at like the protests and the things that are happening, it was right there. I think there is a lot of anti-Semitism in the left, in left-wing politics. Um, in Marxism. I think that there is a theory, there's a school of thought around like anti-colonialism that you see in a lot of academic environments where they're actually teaching that Israel is a colonizer committing genocide. And it's like they're coming up with language that people can use to like whitewash their anti-Semitism. You kind of notice it, right? We're talking about anti-Zionism, or we're talking about genocide, but those are all, those are dog whistles for just Jew hate,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
and the money, right? Like it is union money, union dues that are funding a lot of this advocacy and these protests. They're funding buses of hundreds of people, sending them places. Um, so fighting back against it, it's really important. That's why we're doing what we're doing.
I mean, I have Jewish family, and my eyes have really been opened since October 7th. And I did not appreciate the depth of anti Semitism that exists in society. And I admit that until October 7th, I was incredibly naive. And I thought that we were past this type of thing as a society. This is something I thought was a shameful part of history that we've moved beyond. And I admit my ignorance and my naivete because I truly understand the pain that Jewish
Mhm.
families are going through right now very, very deeply. Um, do you think that using legal challenges like these human rights complaints to push back against this institutional anti Semitism that we're seeing will lead to a shift in the culture of these institutions?
I do, because it's about holding them accountable. Like I don't, for example, like I don't think unions are used to being held accountable. It's very hard to hold a union accountable. You can't, if you're in a union, you can't sue your employer. The only way you can hold your union accountable is by doing an unfair representation claim. Unions have a 90% success rate in those, and they don't get sued very often. I think when you hold people accountable for their words and their actions, it does have an impact. And because if you're silent and you don't do anything, and it makes them think that what they're doing and saying is right and okay. So I don't know, what the future holds, but I think we've got a very good case. I'm confident we're going to win it, and definitely we're in it for the long haul. If it takes years, it takes years, but we're going to take it to the end.
Well, thank you to you and your clients for being brave enough to stand up against things that you see that are wrong. Thank you, Catherine, for joining us.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.